ultimate compliment for me to someone, just the simple expression of, oh wow, this is really well written. Like if someone said that to me, that would mean like a lot. Like this is really well written. And I hear that expression from well-educated people, and I hear that expression from, I'll be at the grocery store and hear somebody talking about blah, 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 and it's like, oh yeah, but the writing, it's like, what gives them the authority what gives them the confidence to even say that they have some opinion on the writing? And I think where that confidence comes from is this idea that, one, we've seen so many stories now as a modern human on our phones and tablets, and we've been watching movies for so long, and even somebody who didn't go to film school or even went to college or anything can still, like, in their bones know what good writing is. And that's, like, I think it's fascinating to me, because as a kid, I grew up in public schools where, like, I didn't even realize the education I wasn't getting until, like, later, trying to educate myself as an adult, just to understand, like, what's really going on in a sentence. And, just being able to identify the difference between a verb and an adjective and what all of that is doing, and taking all the highfalutin shit out of it. It's essentially, a sentence is just a thought, or it's a clear idea that you're just trying to express just one clear idea. That's it. It's this very simple thing. And then if you expand that out to the paragraph level, it's just another, that should be its own full idea, and there should be conflict within that. And then you go to a chapter level, and within that there should be this, and then the book level there should be this. And it's this idea that it can be dynamic at a lot of different levels. In Ray Bradbury's science fiction novel Fahrenheit 451, Bradbury imagines an upside-down world in which all books have been banned and the fire department exists for the sole purpose of finding and burning books. The novel's hero, Montag, discovers an underground movement where people memorize books, then destroy them. In order to preserve books from the book burners, they become the books. But chillingly, as a character in the book tells Montag, it's not as if the book ban and the firemen were necessary. The public itself stopped reading of its own accord. Books used to be seen as a threat, as dangerous articles capable of corrupting morals and inspiring passionate love, igniting relationships, or sowing variously liberty, disorder, and oppression. Books had to be watched, banned, prescribed, listed, condemned, Badlerized. Ulysses and Lady Chatterley's lover were put on trial. Henry Miller's work was banned in the United States, but not anymore, not now. No need to burn or memorize or smuggle books because, in fact, nobody reads them anyways. School boards routinely and quietly choose what the classics our children can't read, and nobody cares. English departments study the sociology of text and excommunicate great works from the canon because they were written by authors of the wrong race or gender, and everyone nods with approval because books have become irrelevant. We live in an age of post-literacy, but what B.W. Powell defines as the condition of semi-literacy, where most people can read and write to some extent, but where the literate sensibility no longer occupies a central position in culture, society, and politics. Post-literacy occurs when the ability to comprehend the word decays. I'm fascinated that I value the book so much. I value reading so much. I value the ideas in it so much. But I want it to grow. I don't want it to be this highfalutin, educational, only stuck in a college classroom thing. I want to write something just so it comes back to like what is well written. Well, for myself, I was writing this stuff and I was, I gotta really showing off. This is how smart I am, and I was handing it out. And the note I was getting is, I want to see you pull out some of there's a term in writing called purple prose, or something that's overwritten. And I was, in my attempt to really, I'm going to write well, I was overwriting, and it was just kind of like I was trying too hard. And that is a growth within myself that I have all this taste about writing, but when I actually went to put my thoughts on the page, I was so insecure and looking like I didn't know what I was doing that I ended up, you know, putting muscles on top of muscles just to look like I was strong. And I just kind of ended up looking ridiculous. I have a lot of people in my life that are really intelligent, and I often think to them, we often have conversations, and they'll say things that are just profound, and I'm like, oh wow, and we'll debate and da 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 da. But then at the end of the day, the actions of their life don't necessarily mirror what they represent on an intellectual level. And to those people, I would love to get their thoughts written down in an articulate way. Even somebody like my father, for instance, grew up on a pig farm, and it was a truck driver most of his adult life, and now late in his life got a really cool job where he flies around the world, dealing with fuel pipelines on military bases. But he's now like a gold level status on Delta. Like, he's seen the world. If he took the time to articulate himself, I would love to read that. I would love to imagine one of your grandparents like really took the time to even write a short story about something from their past. You would just be riveted by that. You'd be fast. Anyone would want to read, you know, their own family members like really articulate expression of their own lives. And it just, I just am fascinated by this idea of somebody that potentially isn't necessarily objectively like crazy intelligent, but yet they still understand what good writing is, and what bad writing is. Stephen King is an author that is incredibly well read, and his books have been turned into numerous films, and there's a million people that would say that guy is well written. And I would agree. I love The Shining, and I've read I read Cujo, which he wrote. He didn't even remember writing, so he claims, because he was such an alcoholic. But I recently gave some of my a chapter from my book that I'm writing to a friend of mine, and he and I had this discussion, and he was talking about he really loved Stephen King's storytelling, but when it came to the actual writing, he felt like there was often times where Stephen King you could feel like he was like, all right, this is the time where I'm going to really like flex. And he wished he would, stay more to just the story. That was his kind of characterization of Stephen King. And he was a fan of Cormac McCarthy, and he liked the idea of like really just like plot driving the story. And that to me is, that can be really fascinating. I read stuff all the time that isn't, as a screenwriter, everything is like, it's so plot driven, and it's so like, you got to stay to the point. But when you're reading something that is just like really interesting writing, like I'm reading Infinite Jest right now, it's the most challenging thing I've ever read, but it's not necessarily plot driven, which is keeping me into it. And if you're going to be a writer, if you're really going to sit down and take the time, I mean, we all have opinions, whether you're a dentist or a roofer or whatever it is that you do in the world. If you're a babysitter or a senator or whatever, we all have taste when it comes to writing, and I think there's some validity in that, and I'm fascinated by it while at the same time trying to figure out my own voice inside of it. But I want to, this is an interesting quote that from Ira Glass about this taste versus talent argument. Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is this gap. For the first couple of years, you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good, it has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of the people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting creative work went through this for years. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this, and if you're just starting out or if you're still in this phase, you got to know that it's normal, and the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you finish one story. It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close the gap and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's going to take a while. You've got to just fight your way through. And so I guess I'm asking the audience, with the last video I did about candy, people were like commenting, and I had this great discussion in the comments. And please leave comments, please subscribe, check out my YouTube page. You can see everything at nicholasanthony.com. But my question to everybody is, what does well written mean to you?